Hey there, welcome back to part 3, working with thought and awareness. So part 1 was thought is dead. Part 2 was us looking toward, well, if thought is dead and there's nothing for us there, what's alive? And something that we can call awareness is maybe what's alive. It's what's there between thoughts. It's so simple. It's what's there when there is no thinking. You can sense it right this minute. You can sit and not think for just a couple seconds. And you can do this. You can just sit and play with this. Don't let any thought form. When there is no thought forming, grabbing us, pulling us around, when we aren't letting all of our attention and energy go into some temporary, moving, changing thought form, when there is no thinking, that's it. You just want to look there. And you want to look there as much as you can and hang out there as much as you can. And it's incredibly familiar, and it becomes incredibly quiet, peaceful, wise. It's the most practical place we can be. And I know initially it doesn't feel that way sometimes because we've really become convinced by the mind that there are real problems that need real solutions. So it can feel irresponsible sometimes to just rest in our true nature, to just be in this effortless awareness. I mean, just aware of all of this. No narrative about it is needed. No conversation about it is needed. No comparison. No thought bringing up you and who you are and how you relate to all of these things. None of that is needed. It may happen, but we want to keep seeing it is not needed. All of that is extra, and it only comes from this very strong identification with thought, with this very strong addiction that we have to paying attention and hanging on every thought. And part of that is, again, that it feels like we're supposed to do that. It can feel, especially as you start to let go and feel that space between thoughts more and more, the mind will come in and say, what are you doing? This is real life. You have to fix these things and solve these problems and think about this. And all kinds of things will happen. Fear might come up. All kinds of things might come up. But that's okay. That will also be experience. And we're all in this together. Like nobody works differently or has a different nature or essence than anyone else. So when we kind of know that this is par for the course, we get to lean into that too and explore this. If you want to really know what it's like to not be beholden to every thought that moves through, to every feeling, to every emotion, to truly get off that roller coaster. This is what we do, is we get off the roller coaster by, one, seeing that a thought is the roller coaster, that there's nothing in that that's going to be resolved, that we don't need that. We've been doing it out of conditioning and addiction, basically. So you don't need that. There's nothing there for you. Thought is dead. That's part 1. Part 2 is what's alive. Getting more re-familiarized with what's always here and what's always been here. Who are you really? What is aware of that roller coaster? What is completely untouched by that roller coaster, and resting in that. And I know minds get really active when we say things like resting in that, right? What does that mean? And what does that look like? You just have to play with it and see for yourself. I don't know, but it's not all of that. It's seeing all of that, the awareness of all of that, and like, no, I'm not taking that bait. And the more we do that, the more these scales start to tip. And you would not want to go back to being on that roller coaster for anything. And it becomes so abundantly clear that roller coaster is not solving anything. It is the problem and the promised solution. There's nothing in that. We don't need to be on that. It is the most responsible, safe thing we can do, if we want to put it in that language, that mind language, to just be who we really are. There is no downside. Not one that I've ever found anyway. No downside to that. So seeing that these personal thought patterns, right? The thinking that comes in that grips you, that feels like you, that's all about the character, the identity, who you are and how you are in the world, related to everything else, what you need to look out for, what good or bad things might happen. We want to see how that moves through, and it's only happening. I know it feels so like, of course, that's life, right? But it isn't. It's happening because it's been fed. It's been energized with our attention. Our attention, our belief in it, our attention, our acting on it is what energizes it. Super simple. That's it. It's like a stray cat. We've heard this a million times, right? The stray cat comes, you keep feeding it, it's going to keep coming. That's all that's happening here is these thought patterns and thought feeling patterns that feel so personal. When they move through, when they grab you, they've just been fed. They've looked real. We've acted on them. We've tried to make them go away. That gives them a lot of attention. That's it. That's the only reason that they continue to come through. As we starve them of our attention, they stop coming through. It really, really, really is that simple. Now, the starving them of our attention, we're gonna be caught up in them at times, but that's fine. It's just something to look toward, something to play with and actually do, not just hear about, but actually do. So how do we starve them of our attention? We see them coming through and we see them for what they are. That's really all there can be. So let me give an example, because I think every identity, from what I've seen, most of the concerns that get an identity all riled up tend to fall in two main camps. There's other things for sure, but little separate self-identities really, really, really love and depend on approval. And they also really, really love and depend on safety and security. So most of the recurring fears, issues, triggers that human beings talk about, again, we can kind of boil them down to it's an approval sort of thing. I might not be accepted. I might not be approved of, or I need more, and a security, safety kind of thing. And those really are kind of all back to safety, probably, because we want approval so that we can stay safe. But anyway, I've talked to a few people this week for whom this thing about, and I can relate to this myself, this thing about, oh no, I made them mad. I upset them. I said something to make someone mad, and I need to fix it. It's not okay. So this is just one example of, like, let's just say this is a thing that comes up for you a lot. Like, you are people pleasy, or like kind of, really, if someone looks at you a certain way or says a certain thing or doesn't respond to a text with the right emojis, oh my gosh, what did I say? Did I do something wrong? Is it okay? And often that when we buy into that, there's a whole attempt that goes into kind of fixing it and making sure the relationship's okay. And the two people I spoke with back to back this week, and again, I can relate to this as well. I can spot that with certain people in my life. It's like both of them saw so clearly, gosh, this is crazy because I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't mess up. I know even if this person is upset with me, so what? It doesn't matter. But it's so big. The feeling of this can feel so big and personal and truly, truly like a life or death kind of approval. They can't be mad at me. This whole pattern starts. So this is our opportunity. Look for this yourself. Again, you have a few main ones. They might change over time through a lifetime, but there's a few main kind of triggery things like that come up. And this is where we get to see, oh, this is old conditioning. I'm going to let this come up. I can feel the feelings associated with it. I can see all the urges and the desires and the fears that come with it. And I'm not energizing that. It's not mine. I'm not buying into this as if it's actually a problem. I'm going to let that arise. It wants me. This is thought. This is how thought stays relevant. It wants your energy. It wants to suck your blood. It's like this little vampire, right? It's like, come on, come on. Aren't you going to fix this problem? They might be mad at you. You messed up. Nope, I'm not. There is no problem. It's a little energy vampire that I'm not feeding. And as we do this, again, the mind might throw a little bit of a fit at first, but as we do this, it becomes so clear. Wow, that was just a little hook. I don't need to take that bait. All that was is a little hook. And it becomes so obvious that we never needed to take the bait, and that as we don't take that bait, it just changes. So this can arise. I love how David Bingham talks about this as an invitation. It's an invitation back into duality. It's an invitation back into being a separate me that's very fragile and needs everything to be okay so we can be okay. It's just an invitation. So you just decline those invitations. There's nothing hard. There's nothing willpower-y or white-knuckly about it. You see these invitations. You feel them first and foremost, I'm sure, and you just decline them. You don't buy into them because something in you knows by now this doesn't make sense. This is not that important for who I am, for my life. And then we rest back in who we really are. The invitation has built into it. It's trying to pull you back into duality, but it also is a reminder of, oh, that's right. That's not the truth of things. That comes and goes. It's not who I am. So then we look back toward awareness. We're aware of this invitation arising. We're aware of the sensations and thoughts. That's who we are. There's this impersonal awareness of all of this as it's coming and as it's leaving. And we just fall back into that. We can relax into that. And these invitations come less and less frequently as we do this. It's so really simple. It's almost like all the words over the years and the pointing is just trying to make this process maybe a little easier. Maybe like, oh yeah, I really can decline these invitations. And once we see that, it's just so simple. It's not always easy because, we have a lot of conditioning, but it's very worth playing with. And again, I can't say enough, not just listening to, not just understanding, but doing it, taking it into your life and experimenting with this. And you'll see that as those little energy vampires get starved of all that attention and all of that action and energy that keeps them alive, they just stop coming around, and life is so much simpler, so much easier from that place. Hope you can get a feel for how simple it is to work with this, and let me know. Reach out if you need support, if you're running up against something. If you're running up against something, I can tell you already, it's just a thought that looks real. That's the only thing there is to run up against. Truly, there's nothing lurking. That's the only thing there is to run up against. But it can be super helpful to voice that and to have someone remind you. So please reach out. Let me know how you're doing with this. And I'm happy to support in a lot of different ways. So just let me know.